Hello, Waterford Wesleyan Church Online. My name is Pastor Matt. I am the assistant pastor here at Waterford Wesleyan Church, and I want to say a special thank you and welcome to our online service. Now, we've got one announcement before we get into today's message, this Father's Day message, and it is this. On July 25th, we are going to be having another outdoor service here in our parking lot at 10 a.m. here at Waterford Wesleyan Church. Again, that's an outdoor service, July 25th at 10 a.m., followed by a cookout and games and just a good time to be able to hang out on a nice summer day. So if you're in the area and you would love to join us, we would love to have you. Again, that is July 25th at 10 a.m., followed by a cookout and fun and games here at the park and in our parking lot. So, without further ado, here is Pastor Paul.
In the game of baseball, if a batter gets a hit 1 out of every 3 times he's at bat, he gets what's called a batting average of .333, right? So when you have a .333 batting average, what's amazing about that is at the highest level of the game in Major League Baseball, that would put you in the Hall of Fame, batting .333 consistently. That's what a big deal it is. Now, just to kind of put that in perspective of how hard it is to do that the last time, the highest career batting average is held by Ty Cobb at 366, I'm sorry. That's pretty amazing. That's the highest batting average lifetime. And to kind of put it in another perspective to show you how difficult it is to bat that way, in 1901, Nap Lajoie batted .426. That's pretty high. And the last time somebody batted .406 was Ted Williams in 1941. He had a season of batting .406. That's an amazing thing to accomplish. So you can see that even the best of the best were coming in at .406. So .333. That's really, really pretty good. Now let's just apply that to real life. Think about it this way, that if you, over the course of the next 2 weeks at work, so 2 5-day work weeks, you went to work 3 out of those 10 days. Something tells me your boss is not going to celebrate that. Something tells me you might lose your job. That's going to work 30% of the time. That would be exceptional in baseball. Or how about this? The next 10 times you drive your car, you smack it up 7 times. You get in 7 accidents over the next 10 times. No one would tell you you're a fantastic driver and your insurance is going to cut you just as well, and you'll be without insurance and then ultimately out of license. So no one's going to celebrate that either. Or even take it to academics. If you have a 33 average in school, no one's going to tell you, hey, that was great, or your mom or dad's not going to be like, wow, that's fantastic, right? I mean, there's not many places where 333 comes up and people are celebrating it. But in baseball, that certainly is the case. Now, I want to say this. There's another place I've observed batting .333 that's pretty good. And that place is as a dad. Now, you may go, wait a minute, a dad batting .333 playing softball? That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is this, that the Bible teaches us, which we're going to get to in a second here, there's like 3 core areas of life that dads hold of a responsibility, like 3 core traits that dad have, and that usually dads are really good at one of them. And we'll get to that in just a minute. You see, this is my observation as a dad who has a dad and who is a dad of a dad. I've kind of observed and thought about and explored, and I really, it's just my opinion. I mean, you can push back on this if you want, but my opinion is this, that it's very difficult in our world today to understand what a dad's role is. What is he supposed to do? We have all kinds of different mixed messages coming at us all the time. And I've discovered this, that the Bible teaches us 3 very clear directives, 3 very clear, universal, ancient truths of what it means to be a father, no matter what is happening in the murky world around you. And, again, my opinion, most dads are they're batting about .333. Or, since it's Father's Day, we'll make a Father's Day joke out of it and call it your dadding average is .333. So to understand what I'm talking about, let's go open our Bibles to 1 Thessalonians chapter 2. Begin reading at verse 6 through 13. And you're going to see something here as the Apostle Paul writes to the church in Thessalonica. I want you to kind of explore and pay attention to how he explains how he responds to them. So here we go. We are not looking for praise from men, not from you or anyone else. As apostles of Christ, we could have been a burden to you. But we were gentle among you, like a mother caring for her little children. We loved you so much that we were delighted to share with you not only the gospel of God, but our lives as well, because you have become so dear to us. Surely you remember, brothers, our toil and hardship. We work night and day in order not to be a burden to anyone while we preach the gospel of God to you. You are witnesses, and so is God, of how holy, righteous, and blameless we were among you who believed. For you know that we dealt with you, each of you, as a father deals with his own children, encouraging, comforting, and urging you to live lives worthy of God, who calls you into his kingdom and glory. And we also thank God continually because when you received the word of God, which you heard from us, you accepted it, not as the word of men, but as it actually is the word of God, which is at work in you who believe. Now, Paul starts making references here of how he cared for the church in Thessalonica, how he cared for that church. And he says this in verse 7. He says, we were gentle among you like a mother caring for her children. Now, when you read that or you hear that, you automatically have a mental picture in your mind of what it looks like for a mother to care for her little children. You kind of see that. You can see how that goes. And that's universal. The Thessalonians saw it. They understood what that meant. And so do we. We get that too because that is unchanging when we see a mother care for her little children. And Paul says, that's how I dealt with you. And then he goes on to say this in verse 11 of the fatherly example. And he says, for you know that we dealt with each of you as a father deals with his own children. Now, again, by Paul saying this, he communicates to the church in Thessalonica exactly how he handled them. But what also comes to the surface here is something entirely else, and that is this, that he reveals those three traits I was talking about earlier that are ingrained in the role of a father. They're unchanging. They were the same 2,000 years ago, they were the same before that, and they're still the same today. Now, before we get into that, one other thing I want to point out to you is this, the necessity of the role of a mom and a dad. And it's kind of easy to miss at first when you read it, but the Apostle Paul makes it pretty clear. He says, I cared for you like a mother cares for her children. And then he goes on to say, as a father, he dealt with them. Mothers care for, fathers deal with. Now, that might seem like an overgeneralization, but I'll tell you, that's my experience. My kids need to be cared for, they go to their mother. When they need something fixed, I deal with it. And so that seems to be the way it works. And it just, I don't want you to miss that. It seems like that is a true thing, and it's been true throughout the years. But anyway, I don't want to get too far off task there. Let's get back on track. And Paul, in his explanation of how he dealt with the church in Thessalonica, he reveals those three traits. And my guess is, again, you're probably really good at one of them, dads. And so let's take a closer look at those traits here in verse 12. He says, encouraging, comforting, and urging you to live lives worthy of God, who calls you into his kingdom and his glory. Paul ties these three traits to the role of a father. And again, you're probably doing really good at one of them. That would give you a dadding average of 333. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to take a quick look at each one of them and open them up a little bit and explore them so that you can take a look at your own life if you're a dad and say, is that where I'm knocking it out of the park? Or maybe I need a little help on that one. So the first one is encouraging. And this literally means to come alongside of your children. And you will be there to encourage them, to cheer them on, to discover who they believe God is leading them to believe. That's your job, to cheer them on in that matter, to discover their goals and their dreams, to be their cheerleader, whether it's on the baseball field, whether it's on the soccer field, whether it's in academics, to be their cheerleader, to be there, to say, keep going, you can do this. I'm behind you, no matter if you're having a good game or bad game, or good grades or bad grades. I'm here, you can do this. You just keep encouraging them on and on towards a specific goal, and we'll get to that in a second. But to also be there when it's not so fun. To be there when they step into adulthood and life gets a little harder. To be there if and when their life is a wreck. To be their cheerleader then. To keep coming alongside of them when it isn't fun. To encourage them, again, in a specific direction, which we'll get to in a second. So dads, you might be looking at yourself going, you know what, I'm pretty good at that. Good, that's your dadding average of 333. You're definitely there then. Or maybe you're going, wow, I never really thought about that. I don't usually encourage my kids that much. Today's the day to do it. Today's the day to come along and be their cheerleader and help them out. That's your dadding average. And hopefully you're at 333. Now the second is comforting. To comfort your children is to be with them, to be present, to be available, and to add to that a level of, well, we use the word compassion, to comfort your children, to be there when life isn't fun, to be there when they're not winning, when they're broken, and to add to that dad role, to be there when they are hurting, whether it's a scraped knee, whether it's a broken heart, whether it's a fractured marriage, no matter how significant it is, no matter how old they are, to be there to comfort them when their life is falling apart. Now, I want you to hear something. To be there to comfort them is not to fix everything. We can't fix everything. And see, what I think we underestimate is the power of presence, to just simply be there. Think about it this way. The last time you've had a significant loss in your life and you were deeply, deeply wounded, people will come alongside you and they'll try to say things to help you, but it doesn't. The only thing you know that really matters is those people that were just simply present in your life. They were there. That is a level of comfort that I think we often overlook, especially as dads. Being present is just so good for your children. To be there physically, to be there emotionally, no matter what they may face in this world. They need to know this, that you will be present, that if they call on you, you will be there to answer. And they need to know that they are more important than, well, your car, your boat, your camp, your job, your hobby, whatever it is, whatever your thing is, they still need to know that they're more important than that. Now, Dad, maybe that's your thing. You're like, I'm really good at comforting. I got that one. I have no problem there. Then awesome. That's your dadding average then. If you're good at that one, that's a 333 dadding average. But we're not done. It's encouraging, comforting, and then finally urging. Paul says, this is a universal trait of a father, is to urge. Now, let me just say this as a caution. That's not driving them like a drill sergeant. Okay, that's not urging. That is not going to help them. That is also not urging them in a way that they make their life comfortable for you. Urging them in a direction. Urging them and pressing them forward to live lives that are honorable. Not as a drill sergeant, but just keep pointing them. Keep pointing them in a direction and to live a life that's honorable. You know what? Check that. Let's take that even a step further and even more specific than just honorable. To live a life that brings glory to Jesus. To urge them to live lives that way. Are you doing that, Dad? Is that your thing? Are you good at that? Are you good at pointing your children towards Jesus, no matter how old they are? And of course, you're doing that with gentleness and respect. We don't have to be obnoxious about that. But keep pointing them to Jesus and live it out for them. Let them see that. That's the urging that they so desperately, desperately need. Urging them is being honest with them, even when it's things they may not want to hear, but doing that, of course, in love. Always pointing them towards Jesus. So whether it's comforting, whether it's encouraging, whether it's urging, it's all in a clear direction. And the Apostle Paul makes that very clear. We encourage, comfort, urge, and live lives worthy of God who calls you into his kingdom in glory. So all three of those, whether we're urging, whether we're comforting, or whether we're encouraging, it's all pointing them towards Jesus. So dads, my challenge to you is this. Take a look at your life. Are you batting 333? That's pretty good. Are you batting 667? That's incredible. Are you batting 1,000 in each of these 3 years? Then that is exceptional. Now I'll tell you this as a final thought. As you evaluate your own life and you look at it, go, am I a good encourager? Am I a good comforter? Am I a good urger? And you start checking those off. Some of those you're really good at. And if you're really good at urging, you might not be so good at comforting. If you're really good at comforting, you might not be so good at urging. If you're good at encouraging, you might not be good at comforting. You kind of get the idea. And so the challenge is this, to not just stick to the one that you're good at, but to step into that awkward, clunky place, that if you're a good encourager, to go ahead and comfort, what that looks like. So it is, if your child's little and the next time they scrape their knee, be there. If they're going through some life stuff and it's hard and they just need someone to be present, and you're like, I don't really know how to do that, dive into it. Figure it out. Don't let awkward or clunky stop you from fulfilling those ancient, universal roles of comforting, urging, and encouraging. You see, the reason I know this is valuable is because not only is it true then, it's true today, but this is what God has done for us. He comforts us when our hearts are broken. He urges us in the direction to live a life worthy of Christ. And he encourages us when life is difficult because he is our Heavenly Father. So dads, let me just say this to you. Your dating average might be 333, it might be 667, it might be 1,000. Whatever it is, the one that you're good at, keep going. The other two or other one that you're not, today's the day to take a step into it. And if it's clunky and awkward, go for it anyway. Your kids will love you for it. Your kids will appreciate it far beyond anything you've imagined. And I don't care how old they are, whether they're little or whether they're adults. Comfort, encourage, and urge them.